Images from China's state broadcaster shows firefighters battling wildfires in the mountains in the Chongqing municipality as a crippling drought exacerbated by a record heat wave spreads across half of the country. More details on this later in the news. Good evening. I'm CJ Hero. This is Mata ng Agila International. And now for the headlines. The House of Representatives has started its deliberation for the proposed 2023 national budget, where the administration revealed its plan to borrow 1.16 trillion pesos in 2023. Motorists will face big-time oil price increase next week. The country's COVID-19 cases may reach 9,000 daily, according to the Department of Health, as worldwide COVID-19 deaths top 1 million so far this year. Floods in Afghanistan killed 180 individuals in a month. And another member of U.S. Congress visits Taiwan, defying pressure from Beijing. Of Representatives has commenced deliberating on the 2023 proposed national budget amounting to 5.268 trillion pesos. Vic Sumintak reports.
The House Committee on Appropriations has started scrutinizing the 2023 proposed government appropriations of 5.268 trillion pesos. In his opening statement before the budget deliberations, House Speaker Martin Romualdez vowed to exert efforts to pass the first budget of the Marcos administration without sacrificing the rights of the Congress. Romualdez said the proposed government funding would address the 8-point economic agenda of the Marcos administration, identified in the medium-term fiscal framework focusing on food security and economic recovery program during the post-COVID-19 pandemic.
We will make sure that each bit of spending will contribute to our goal of reigniting the fires of our economic forges and at least propel the country to reach economic growth at pre-pandemic levels. Every centavo of this national budget will be spent wisely to implement projects and programs, putting primordial consideration into saving lives, building and protecting communities, and making our economy strong and more agile.
For his part, Appropriations Committee Chairman Congressman Elizalde said the panel would work hard to enact the proposed budget before the year ends to avoid a reenacted budget. The panel chief also appealed to his colleagues to buckle down to work to get the job done.
The ball is now in the hands of the committee. Whatever disposition we shall take, we must act and work together to scrutinize every aspect of this budget to ensure that it's consistent with the socio-economic agenda of the President. We shall guarantee that every peso authorized in this budget is directed to address food security, inflation, reduce poverty, and provide the necessary stimulus for economic transformation. Let's work hard and work together to accomplish this task assigned to us by the Filipino people to ascertain their future, prosperity, and advancement.
During the budget briefing of the Development Budget Coordination Committee, the administration's economic team presented to the plenary the source of financing, expenditure levels, and budget proposals of various government agencies. Budget Secretary Amina Pangandaman, along with National Economic Development Administration or NEDA Chief and Socio-Economic Planning Secretary Arsenio Balisacan, Finance Secretary Benjamin Diokno and Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas or BSP Governor Felipe Medalla presented the proposed national budget for this year. Vic Sumintak reporting for mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
The proposed 5.268 trillion pesos for the 2023 national budget prioritizes 5 sectors, including infrastructure, education, health, agriculture, and social safety nets. Under the proposed funding for next year, 1.196 trillion pesos were allotted to spearhead the Build Better More or BBM infrastructure programs. Education was allotted 852.8 billion pesos and the health sector with 296.3 billion pesos. 184.1 billion pesos is allotted to agriculture and 197 billion pesos for the social safety nets through the Department of Social Welfare and Development or DSWD. The Marquez administration is expected to borrow more than 1 trillion pesos to cover the projected shortfall in next year's government funding. During the budget briefing at the House of Representatives, Budget Secretary Benjamin Diokno said the country's total revenue projection in 2023 is 3.6 trillion pesos against the proposed budget of 5.268 trillion pesos. Diokno said the projected expenditures is 5.1 trillion pesos and there will be a deficit of 1.16 trillion pesos. Asked by Albay Representative Edsel Lagman if the shortfall would be funded through new borrowings, the finance chief responded in the affirmative. 73% of the expected borrowings will be sourced locally and the rest, or 25%, will come from foreign sources. The Department of Energy warns motorists of a big-time oil price increase next week. The 4-day monitoring this week of the DOE Industry Management Bureau indicates a fuel price increase next week. DOE OIMB Assistant Director Rodela Romero projects a 5 peso per liter increase in diesel and a 1 peso per liter increase in gasoline. The projected increase is due to the higher demand for fuel in countries approaching the winter season that uses petroleum products, including liquefied petroleum gas or LPG for heating purposes. Another reason is the harvesting season in other countries, denoting an increase in the demand and price of petroleum products. In other news, the Department of Health warned that COVID-19 cases in the country may reach 9,000 each day. Nadine Aguilar has the details.
As the classes open this August, nearly 28 million students who are enrolled in face-to-face classes are added to the number of individuals who go out of their houses. Add to this figure is the number of parents who bring and fetch their children to school. Because of the high number of mobility or number of people who leave their houses and the low number of people who receive vaccinations, the Department of Health warned that there is a possibility that the cases of COVID patients may surge to 9,000 each day in the country. DOH OIC Maria Rosario Vergere, however, cleared that it can also not happen provided that those people who go out of their houses follow health protocols and the number of individuals getting COVID vaccinations or boosters also increase. But Vergere said that as of now, their monitoring shows that COVID-19 cases in the country have plateaued. The daily cases of virus infections are at 3,231. This is lower compared to the 3,700 daily cases last week. Health authorities also observed that there are lower COVID-19 cases in the National Capital Region. Though the number of severe and critical cases of COVID-19 patients is increasing, it stays lower than 1,000 cases. The DOH said that as of August 21, there are 811 severe and critical COVID-19 cases in the country.
So kung makikita natin yung picture naman ng mga na-admit na severe and critical, marami sa kanila hindi bakunado. Marami sa kanila, meron ding ibang kondisyon bukod sa COVID-19, katulad ng comorbidities na tinatawag natin. Marami rin sa kanila ay mga nakakatanda. So ito po yung mga vulnerable population natin for COVID-19.
Nadine Aguilar, reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Department of Health has reported an upsurge in non-COVID cases like dengue and leptospirosis. Madeline Villar Moratillo has the details.
Most of sick individuals in the hospital today are non-COVID patients or admitted due to other diseases such as dengue and leptospirosis, which is common during the rainy season. According to DOH Officer in Charge Maria Rosario Berjere, 18,000 of these patients who are hospitalized is due to dengue fever.
Napupuno po yung ating mga ospital because of non-COVID admissions. So pag sinabing nating non-COVID admissions, ibig sabihin hindi po dahil sa COVID-19 kaya na-admit ang ating mga kababayan. It's because of these non-COVID illnesses, kasama na rin po itong mga pagkakasakit, mga zoonotic infections. Nakita ho natin na marami rin tayong mga kababayan naka-admit ngayon for dengue. Around 18,000 admissions for dengue all over the country. Hindi lamang po yan sa mga kabataan ngayon. Nakikita natin na marami rin na-admit dahil dito sa mga sakit na uso lalo na ngayong tag-ulan.
From January to August of this year, the DOH has recorded 118,526 dengue cases. The data is 153% higher compared to the record made during the same months of the year 2021. Most of the recorded dengue cases are from Central Luzon, Central Visayas, and National Capital Region. 29,586 of these cases are recorded from July 10 to August 6 only. Last week, 10 out of the 17 regions in the country surpassed the epidemic threshold. Health officials also see that the number of dengue cases in NCR continues to spike. 399 patients died due to dengue. 100 of these deaths were recorded in July. Leptospirosis cases in the country also surged to 1,411 from January to August of this year. Majority of the leptospirosis cases are from the NCR, Western Visayas, and Cagayan Valley. For the past 4 weeks, the Bicol region, Central Visayas, and Davao region also exceeded the epidemic threshold. 188 individuals died due to leptospirosis. Most of these deaths happened last July. Berjere reminded the public not to stride in floods to avoid getting sick with leptospirosis.
Ang dahilan kung bakit na-ospital ang ating mga kababayan kapag kami sakit na ganito, dahil kasi ang leptospirosis affects our kidneys and other organs. So kapag late na po tayo nagpakonsulta, maaring yung infeksyon ay kumalat na at naumpisa na ang mga komplikasyon. Kaya nagkakaroon ng pagkaka-ospital, kailangan pang mag-dialysis yung iba dahil nasisira na ng gusto ang kidney. So ang ating paalala, ngayon pong tag-ulan, kung makakaiwas kayong lumusong sa mga baha, huwag muna pong lumusong. Kung kailangan talaga, magbota po tayo. Kung wala tayong bota, mag-plastic po tayo ng paa. Pagdating sa bahay, ugasang maigi ang paa. Kung meron kayong sugat sa paa, pumunta na po kayo agad sa inyong health center para mabigyan kayo ng post-exposure prophylaxis para sa leptospirosis.
Madeline Villar Moratillo reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Individuals affected by severe tropical storm Florita has ballooned to more than 71,000, according to the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, or NDRRMC. In its latest report, NDRRMC said 17,510 families or 71,468 people have been affected by Florita in Ilocos Region, Cagayan Valley, Cordillera Administrative Region, Calabarzon, and Metro Manila. A total of 776 families remained inside evacuation centers, while 169 households continued to stay in the homes of their relatives and friends. The death toll remained at one of which is still up for validation, and 4 others injured. The NDRRMC said Florita damaged 33 houses in Ilocos Region, Cagayan Valley, and Cordillera Administrative Region. Damage to agriculture reached 3.4 million pesos, while infrastructure incurred 33.7 million pesos damage to infrastructure in Ilocos Region and Cagayan Valley. The agency said 6.2 million pesos worth of food packs, hygiene kits, and relief assistance have been provided to Florida-affected communities. Around 7.2 million pesos worth of humanitarian assistance were distributed to the affected regions of severe tropical storm Florita. At the Laging Handa Forum, DSWD Assistant Secretary and spokesperson Romel Lopez said Florida has affected 29,447 families, or around 113,000 individuals from 558 barangays in Ilocos Region, Cagayan Valley, Central Luzon, Calabarzon or Cavite, Laguna, Batangas, Rizal, Quezon National Capital Region, and Cordillera Administrative Region. Lopez said 1,400 individuals remain in 19 temporary shelters in the Ilocos Region, Central Luzon, NCR, and CAR, while 1,023 individuals are staying with relatives. Lopez said that DSWD Central Office has 760 million pesos quick response funds that are readily available for families affected by Florida. Coming up, more than 180 people killed in a month by Afghan floods. U.S. Senator Blackburn says President Xi Jinping doesn't scare me. And RT News visits Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. Mata ng Agila International will return for these stories and more. Please don't go away.
Together natin inaalam ang mga balita.
Pangmalakasan ng ating power kapag tayo ay together.
Nakikipagkulitan kasama kayo together.
Together tayo sa lungkot at saya sa bawat umaga. Isang taon na tayo together, mga kada!
Araw-araw may bagong kaalaman. Dahil sa Tony Knows, Everybody Knows! Your Kuya Tony Petgaba na hindi naubusan ng tips. Siyempre, from DIY to life hacks, sagot ko na yan. Saan ka pa? Let's all play together. Let's have fun together. Tara na, sumali at makigulo sa aming Kada Challenge. Sa kada umaga, kompleto na ang inyong umaga.
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. More than 180 people have been killed and 3,000 homes destroyed by floods in Afghanistan over the past month, according to a government spokesman. Zabidullah Mujahid said the scale of the damage had been worse because of the mismanagement of infrastructure by the previous government. However, the hardline Taliban regime that returned to power a year ago is also struggling to cope. Heavy rains have lashed several provinces, with the worst of the flooding in the east of the country. Since the Taliban took control of Afghanistan, the country has been plunged further into economic and humanitarian crisis, worsened by the freezing of billions in assets held abroad and a slash in aid funding. The Taliban called on the international community, particularly Muslim countries, to help the government meet the needs of flood victims. U.S. Senator Marsha Blackburn became the latest member of Congress to visit Taiwan, defying pressure from Beijing. In a series of tweets, Blackburn reiterated her support for Taiwan. I will never kowtow to Chinese Communist Party, she said in one statement. I will continue to stand with the Taiwanese and their right to freedom and democracy. Xi Jinping doesn't scare me, she said that later, referring to China's leader. The U.S. Senator also said she is looking to meet with leaders in Taipei to advance and strengthen bilateral partnerships. Meanwhile, Taiwan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs said it was grateful that U.S. Congress people have once again demonstrated their commitment to Taiwan by visiting at a time when China continues to heighten its threat.
For the Taiwanese people, seeing the international support is very important, and this is the way to keep us going. This is a way to keep the Taiwanese people in high morale. So that might be symbolic, but it has more substance to anything else.
Wu also restated Taiwan's wish to procure more defensive weapons from the U.S. and discussed Taipei's defense against Xi's forces. An elite special ops unit advances to a city in Donetsk onto positions of Ukrainian forces. A crew from RT News was caught on fire while following Russian troops. Igor Shtanov of RT News has this report.
Right away, the village of Pokrovskaya wipes out any doubts. It is still very much a front line. We're here to join an elite Russian special ops unit supporting the offensive on this part of the front.
The Ukrainians abandoned their positions as always in a hurry. They threw away all of their inventory. You can see a foreign-made jacket here, medicines, first aid kits, and over here is their fortification trench.
So the main purpose of this fortified area just outside the village of Pokrovska was to not allow this village to be encircled from the south. Now, also this position was where the Ukrainian forces tried to briefly gain a foothold after it was clear that the village itself had fallen. There's nothing but vast open fields and sporadic forest belts between this place and Kiev's forces' next stronghold of the town of Artyomovsk. We are quite literally treading on eggshells here. Upon abandoning this position, Ukrainian troops rigged the whole area. They used cluster munitions to scatter hundreds of anti-personnel mines all over the place. Such munitions are explicitly banned by the Geneva Convention. The mine goes off in a rather anticlimactic fashion, but its intention is not to kill but rather cripple a person. The blast is more than enough to tear one's foot right off. And as Ukraine's troop retreated, they made sure it's not just infantry but heavy vehicles too that will have to advance with extreme caution. Sappers have their hands full extracting anti-tank mines too. Russian mortars and howitzers here pound enemy positions around the clock. Ukraine's artillery pulls no punches either, something that we witnessed firsthand. Yet Kyiv troops' efforts to stall Russia's advance proved to be futile, with the main fighting already engulfing the streets of Artyomovsk. Magashdanov reporting from the Donbass, RT.
Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelinsky says in his daily address that Russia has put Ukrainians as well as all Europeans one step away from radiation disaster due to its actions at the Zaporizhia nuclear plant. The plant is under occupation by Moscow's troops and was disconnected from the national power supply on Thursday, according to Ukraine's energy operator.
Остання діюча лінія віддачі потужності станцій в енергосистему України. Одразу спрацювали дизель-генератори, щоб дати енергію самій станції, підтримати її після зупинки. Світ повинен розуміти, яка це загроза. Якби дизель-генератори не включились, якби після блекауту не спрацювали автоматика і наш персонал станції, то ми би зараз вже були змушені долати наслідки радіаційної аварії. Росія поставила Україну і усіх європейців в ситуацію за крок від радіаційної катастрофи. Хочу запевнити усіх українців, ми робимо все, щоб не допустити аварійного сценарію. Але це залежить не тільки від нашої держави. Ключове – потрібен такий міжнародний тиск, який змусить окупантів негайно вийти з території Запорізької АЕС. МАГАТЕ та інші міжнародні організації повинні діяти значно швидше, ніж зараз. Бо кожна хвилина перебування російських військових на атомній станції – це ризик глобальної радіаційної катастрофи.
Meanwhile, a crew of RT News visited the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant in Ukraine, where they showed the damage from the recent Ukrainian forces shelling. Ukraine has accused Russia of using the nuclear plant as shield. Alexei Repin of RT News has this exclusive.
The largest power plant in Europe, Zaporozhye, is being shelled daily by the Ukrainian military. Recently, as a result of yet another attack, one civilian was killed on the spot and yet another was fatally wounded. Still, the station continues to operate with its reactors generating energy. We are currently near one of the pumping stations at the Zaporozhye nuclear plant. A Ukrainian shell landed here in late July. You can see the consequences of that shelling right now for yourself. But this station continues to work as the main equipment is located in the basement. This crater within the vicinity of the cleaning facilities was created last Saturday due to shelling by Ukrainian forces. You can judge for yourself about the danger of such attacks. Literally 150 meters from here is the plant's 5th power unit. And it is still working just around the corner.
At the moment, the radiation at the station, as well as the surrounding areas, is within norms. The shelling hit mostly auxiliary equipment, hydrogen and oxygen facilities. We are trying to repair the damage as soon as possible so that the nuclear plant will not have to halt its operations.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can lose count when you look at this building and try to figure out how many shells landed here. But the Defense Ministry has accurate statistics on how many times Ukrainian forces fired at the Zaporozhye nuclear plant. And it is ready to share that data with the global community, including with the IAEA, but no one is in a hurry to come here yet. At the Zaporozhye nuclear plant, out of 6 power units, 3 are under scheduled repair. 2 are working normally, and 1 is working at about 10% of its capacity to ensure its own safety with the cooling system. Shattered glass, walls damaged by shrapnel. This is the lesser evil that can happen as a result of artillery shelling of a nuclear power plant. Even according to the most conservative estimates, in the event of a detonation of the nuclear reactor, a radioactive cloud could cover half of Europe. It would take at least a decade to eliminate all of the consequences. The territory of the Zaporozhye plant is really impressive. It takes at least an hour to just walk around the power units. But from the view of a satellite or a reconnaissance drone, the entire territory can be seen all at once. If Russian heavy artillery was located here, that would have become public knowledge long ago. The photos would have been published all over the media. But that is not happening because there is no heavy Russian weaponry here.
German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier warns of new extremist threats to German society. Steinmeier's remarks came on the 30th anniversary of the racist riots in the Leichhagen district. In 1992, thousands of bystanders applauded as a marauding mob flung stones and gasoline bombs at a housing block for asylum seekers. Steinmeier traveled to the northern city of Rostock to commemorate the rampage. He says Germany has failed to snuff out hatred and radicalism in the intervening years. The president also warns of potential militancy this winter because of high energy prices, inflation, and resumed pandemic measures. Steinmeier says in the last 3 decades, Germany has seen successive waves of extremism, especially or some of it deadly. Meanwhile, a U.S. judge has ordered investigators to release a redacted version of court papers that convinced him to authorize a search of former U.S. President Donald Trump's estate. The order from Judge Bruce Reinhart, who approved the warrant and is overseeing the case from West Palm Beach, Florida, instructed the Justice Department to submit the redacted affidavit that he had reviewed in the public docket before noon. The public version of the affidavit, a document that includes the evidence gathered by prosecutors, could disclose new details about the inquiry. In an earlier 2-page ruling, the judge said the Justice Department had demonstrated a compelling reason to black out parts of the document, which would reveal the identities of witnesses, law enforcement agents, and uncharged parties, as well as the investigation's strategy, direction, scope, methods, and sources. However, Reinhart said the remainder of the affidavit could become public. The public version of the affidavit contains key information, specifically the probable cause about the Justice Department's investigation into the unauthorized retention of government secrets at Mar-a-Lago. The alleged probable cause, according to the warrant, could constitute violations of at least 3 criminal statutes. Trump has expressed on his social media website that he supports the unsealing of all the affidavits, but his lawyers never filed a formal motion to that effect. Now, earlier, the former U.S. leader filed a separate motion to have a so-called special master appointed to determine what seized materials prosecutors can use as evidence in the investigation and force the Justice Department to provide a more detailed list of what was retrieved by the FBI. Meanwhile, a new poll suggests that the FBI has increased Trump's chances if he enters the 2024 presidential race. His voter support has improved sharply since the controversial raid for classified documents. Now asked whether they would rather see Trump or someone else win the GOP presidential nomination, 54% of Republicans and Republican-leaning independents prefer Trump, according to a Yahoo and Gov poll released this week. That compares with 34% who want another candidate and 12% who are undecided. The 54-34 margin marks an 11-point shift from the 47-38 edge that Trump held earlier this month before the FBI raid. Up next, WHO says COVID-19 deaths continue unabated. Peru to sue Repsol for $4.5 billion over oil spill. And Port Moresby in Papua New Guinea celebrates youth empowerment. More about these stories when Mata ng Agila International returns.
Running a business is part and parcel of our daily lives, mula sa sari-sari store ng kapitbahay, sa motor supply shop sa kanto, sa mga nagtitinda ng masasarap na pagkain at marami pang iba. They are called micro, small, and medium enterprises, the backbone of many economies. Today, let us attempt to have a closer look on the path to digitization and digitalization of MSMEs, and let's learn on how it can flourish businesses with our guest, Arlene Martinez, the founding president of Asia Council for Small Business Philippine Chapter.
When you open up and embrace digital technology and you become present online, ang pinaka-advantage po niyan is that hindi mo nilalagyan ng cap ang growth or revenue growth mo. Your potential to grow is not just 10-folds, 100-folds, but it can be 1,000-folds.
Open for Business with Cesar Vallejos, Sunday, 9 p.m.
This portion is brought to you by Source Alliance.
You're still watching Mata ng Agila International. Now, the head of the World Health Organization says COVID-19 deaths continue unabated. This year alone, 1 million people have succumbed to the infection. Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus says 2.5 years into the pandemic, we are not using the tools available to prevent these deaths.
We cannot say we're learning to live with COVID-19 when 1 million people have died with COVID-19 this year alone.
Ghebreyesus called on all countries to strengthen their efforts to have at least 70% of their population vaccinated against COVID-19. Meanwhile, after 3 years as the head of Human Rights Watch, Kenneth Roth says he has come to believe governments are always tempted to violate citizens' rights. But as he plans to retire later this month, Roth says government abuses are now more readily exposed.
It's virtually impossible for governments to hide their abuses, particularly in an era of social media where everybody has a smartphone, everybody can take pictures and videos and post them on social media. So, our ability to watch what governments do is greatly increased.
As Roth looks back, he says he is encouraged by the birth of democracies in Eastern Europe and South America. But he says the Middle East and North Africa are still pretty much the same. Roth added that Russia is moving back toward the Soviet era and China is reverting to Maoist-style rule. Now, a city in Canada sets up COVID vaccination pop-up clinics at big events happening in the neighborhood. This is to increase the number of vaccinated residents against the virus. Joshua Santillana files this report.
Toronto Public Health is bringing COVID vaccination clinics to several iconic events in the city, like the Canadian National Exhibition, or the X, Taste of Manila, and the Toronto Chinatown Festival, encouraging event-goers to get their next COVID vaccine. The CNE is Canada's biggest community event and one of the most iconic fairs in the continent. From live entertainment, concerts, exhibits, and air shows to plenty of games and food, it remains one of the most popular summer events in the city. Alongside the CNE, the Taste of Manila and Chinatown festivals are gathering large crowds looking to enjoy food and entertainment from each respective culture. The month of August remains the busiest in the city of Toronto. This year, with many residents and guests roaming the city's streets, Toronto Public Health is taking advantage of these popular events to promote COVID vaccinations. These pop-up clinics are offering anywhere from first to fourth doses of the vaccine, as well as pediatric vaccines to eligible residents. With these pop-up clinics, the City of Toronto hopes to encourage more people to stay up to date in their vaccinations while enjoying the last summer festivities, preparing the city for the upcoming fall and winter seasons. Joshua Santillana, Toronto, Ontario, Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
New Zealand has confirmed the identities of 2 children whose remains were found stuffed inside suitcases, but their names will not be made public at the request of their families, according to police. Detectives are continuing to investigate the deaths, which have rocked the country since the bodies were recovered 2 weeks ago. The grisly discovery came after an unsuspecting family bought a trailer load of items, including the suitcases, at an auction for abandoned goods near Auckland, Auckland, the country's biggest city. But police said the family who purchased the suitcases are not connected to the deaths. According to police, the children are believed to have been primary school aged and when they died. Earlier, police in South Korea's capital, Seoul, told AFP they had located a woman believed to be related to the children. Detective Inspector Tofilao Famanuia Valua said a coroner has issued an order to not make public any evidence that could reveal the identities of the children. Meanwhile, Peru's Consumer Protection Agency is suing Repsol over a huge oil spill that blackened beaches off the coast of Lima in January. Indacopi's civil lawsuit seeks $3 billion for environmental damage and $1.5 billion for damages to locals. It also alleged that the ecological damage is continuing to affect fishermen and the environment. President Pedro Castillo also described the spill as one of the biggest ecocides ever on the coasts and seas. According to the Peruvian Environment Ministry, hundreds of fishermen and hospitality workers also lost income due to the disaster. However, Repsol has denied responsibility for the oil spill and said that it sees the claim as baseless, inadmissible, and inconsistent. A spokesperson for the company said Repsol has used all means at its disposal to contain, clean, and remediate the coastline, as well as assist the communities in the area. It also participated in rescues and took care of the fauna affected by the oil spill. The spill, which Peru called the worst ecological disaster around Lima in recent memory, leaked more than 10,000 oil barrels into the Pacific Ocean. Repsol initially said the spill was caused by sudden and extraordinary anomalous waves produced by the volcanic eruption in Tonga, but it later blamed the Italian flag tanker Mare Doricum. A bill before the California legislature could mean big changes for fast food restaurants. Details from Aika Era.
If this legislation passes, it will alter the relationship between restaurant workers and the fast food chains they work for. The bill would make the fast food corporation and not just the franchise holder liable for labor law violations. That means workers would be able to sue the fast food chains for things like wage violations and unpaid overtime. As well, the franchise holder would be able to sue the chain if they were put in the position of having to violate labor laws to fulfill their franchise contracts. The bill will also set wage and labor standards for the fast food industry. While workers may welcome it, the proposed legislation has its critics. The state's finance department worries the bill will push up costs for franchise owners, who will then pass them on to consumers. The California Restaurant Association echoes these concerns. And a study by the International Franchise Association suggests if the measures are adopted, fast food prices could jump by 20%. Although the goal is to prevent what many call wage theft, opponents say wage theft occurs in many other industries. They add California already has stronger labor laws and higher wages than other states. Lawmakers have to vote on the bill by the end of the month to keep it alive in the legislature. Aika Era, Los Angeles, California, Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
In the capital city of Papua New Guinea, the day was all about empowering the youth through confidence building and self-defense strategy learning. Here's Echo Ortaleza Quinola to tell us more about the celebration.
Youth residents of the capital city of Papua New Guinea are the center of attention as Port Moresby's Active City Development Program hosts International Youth Day and World Wushu Kung Fu Day.
Director Fazila Bazari invites the Papua New Guinea Shaolin Kung Fu Wushu masters and students to remind the youth of the importance of life, health, and hard work to thrive in one's field. Sports manager Agila encourages the young women to learn self-defense strategies.
Sports is a very powerful influence in Port Moresby as well as the country. Sports in Papua New Guinea is a meta activity, and we have a lot of young people going through sports to showcase their potential. For me, I see the importance of self-defense for both men and women, for them to defend themselves, particularly women, because we have violence in our city and around the country. So, to protect their families and protect themselves, it's relevant for the young girls to come and do this training.
Other physical exercises showcased this day are dances, circus, kickboxing, and karate. Empowering youth mentally, physically, and emotionally truly helps create a safe, smart, and healthy community. Eko Hortaleza Quinola, Mata ng Agila International, Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea, trusted, connected, on point.
Conservators at the British Museum in London have revealed 8 pieces of ancient glassware that they have repaired after they were shattered in the Beirut port blast of August 4, 2020. Here's Eribel Celestino from the UK.
8 ancient glass vessels shattered in the 2020 Beirut explosion go on display at the British Museum from Thursday, walking visitors through the painstaking international project to piece them back together. The vessels from the Roman, Byzantine, and Islamic periods were reconstructed at the world-famous museum's conservation laboratories and will be shown as part of its Shattered Glass of Beirut showcase before returning to Lebanon later this year. It tells a story of near destruction and recovery, of resilience and collaboration, said Hartwig Fisher, director of the British Museum. The vessels were among 74 contained within a case at the American University in Beirut. The case fell over when the shockwave of the port blast, which occurred 3 kilometers or 2 miles away on August 4, 2020, hit the building, smashing the glass objects inside. A team of experts had the daunting task of sorting every shard of glass, deciding if it was part of an ancient vessel rather than display case, and which vessel it belonged to. Duigu Kamarkwoglu, a senior conservator at the British Museum, said, "It's all pretty much done by hand or by eye, brain work basically. You had to know certain techniques to be able to carry out this work," she added. From the United Kingdom, I'm Arabelle Celestino for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
With the high cost of fuel, Palestinians in Gaza are resorting to refining diesel out of plastic. Plastic waste is used as a feedstock for these homemade refineries. The waste is put into a tank and boiled to a temperature between 200 and 250 degrees Celsius. Once it reaches that temperature, it is cooled and the vapor is transformed into a liquid that is used as diesel. 1.5 tons of plastic waste makes about 1,000 liters of fuel, reducing the cost to less than half the price of regular diesel. Demand for the fuel is high as it is needed to power boats, generators, farm equipment, and old cars. The plastic waste is collected from neighborhoods and landfills. A crippling drought exacerbated by a record heat wave has spread across half of China and reached the normally frigid Tibetan Plateau, according to official data released ahead of more searing temperatures on Thursday. The world's second largest economy has experienced over 70 days of heat waves, flash floods, and droughts. phenomena that scientists say are becoming more frequent and intense due to climate change. Southern China has recorded its longest continuous period of high temperatures since records began more than 60 years ago. The Agriculture Ministry said that this week. A chart from the National Climate Center showed that swathes of southern China, including the Tibetan Plateau, were experiencing severe to extraordinary drought conditions. The worst affected area, the Yangtze River Basin, stretching from coastal Shanghai to Sichuan province in China's southwest, is home to over 370 million people and contains several manufacturing hubs, including the megacity of Chongqing. But some regions gained relief from the heat wave. According to the Meteorological Administration, as Typhoon Maon made landfall, high temperatures have been alleviated in the regions of South China, Jiangxi, and Anhui. But it added that high temperatures will continue for the next 3 days in regions including the Sichuan Basin and provinces surrounding Shanghai. Later on, mata ng Agila International. SpaceX and T-Mobile unveil satellite plan to end cell phone dead zones. Russian diamonds are back on the market. And animals queuing up at a London zoo for annual weigh-in. Stay tuned for the details. Mata ng Agila International will be back.
Running a business is part and parcel of our daily lives, mula sa sari-sari store ng kapitbahay, sa motor supply shop sa kanto, sa mga nagtitinda ng masasarap na pagkain at marami pang iba. They are called micro, small, and medium enterprises, the backbone of many economies. Today, let us attempt to have a closer look on the path to digitization and digitalization of MSMEs, and let's learn on how it can flourish businesses with our guest, Arlene Martinez, the founding president of Asia Council for Small Business Philippine Chapter.
When you open up and embrace digital technology and you become present online, ang pinaka-advantage po niyan is that hindi mo nilalagyan ng cap ang growth or revenue growth mo. Your potential to grow is not just 10-folds, 100-folds, but it can be 1,000-folds.
Open for Business with Cesar Vallejos, Sunday, 9 p.m.
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila. Ever experienced no signal on your cell phone? Elon Musk's SpaceX and U.S. wireless carrier T-Mobile want to put an end to your frustration. The two companies announced a partnership. Their aim, and mobile dead zones. The plan is that SpaceX satellites will connect directly to T-Mobile cell phones to provide service access, even in the most remote places beyond the reach of cell towers. The new service will begin offering text and messaging services in late 2023, with voice calls and data services expected to follow later. CEO of T-Mobile, Michael Seibert, speaks about what this means to cell phone users.
So this partnership is about imagining a different future. Imagining a future where if you have a clear view of the sky, you are connected on your mobile phone. Because this is a technology partnership about dedicating T-Mobile's, a slice of T-Mobile's mid-band PCS spectrum to be integrated into Starlink satellites launched next year. So
perhaps died of thirst or exposure, or someone that got stuck in a blizzard and froze to death. You know, you could conceivably get stranded on a desert island and be talking to a basketball.
Elon Musk emphasizes the importance of connecting to a communication network anywhere in the world.
Good evening, everybody. We've all read about somebody who's, say, been hiking and got lost and perhaps died of thirst or exposure, or someone that got stuck in a blizzard and froze to death. You know, you could conceivably get stranded on a desert island and be talking to a basketball. But now you can call for help. So the thing that I think is really profound about what we're announcing today is that it will save lives.
After being hit with U.S. sanctions, Russian mining giant Alrosa is back, selling more than $250 million per month in diamonds. Sources told Bloomberg that sales are coming back as banks and traders shift transactions away from U.S. dollars to avoid running afoul of sanctions. Alrosa's diamond sales are now $50 million to $100 million below pre-war levels. According to Bloomberg, Alrosa has been selling diamonds to buyers in India and Europe who are mostly paying with rupees. Most of the diamonds are meant for India, where manufacturers dispense the stones to small businesses that cut and polish them, while banks feel more comfortable using alternative currencies outside of U.S. dollars. Bloomberg said that Russia's renewed diamond sales haven't violated any sanctions, but the deals are still kept under wraps with Alrosa. The company is not wishing to disclose any financial information, as doing business with Russia attracts unwanted attention, according to the site. Now, the return of Russian supplies has also eased tightness in the secondary market for diamonds, with prices coming down recently. Russia accounted for roughly 1/3 of rough diamond supply globally, but sanctions following Russia's conflict with Ukraine froze sales. German car manufacturer Audi will become an engine supplier in Formula One for the first time in the 2026 season. Chairman Marcus Dwesman announced that. Audi will announce the team they will supply by the end of the year, although it is widely expected to be Sauber, who presently race as Alfa Romeo with a Ferrari engine. The announcement was made at Spa-Francorchamps, the venue for Sunday's Belgian Grand Prix, with Dwesman saying Formula One is both a global stage for Audi and a highly challenging development laboratory. The engine will be developed at Audi's sports facility in Neuburg, near Ingolstadt. The car company also sees enormous potential by being associated with Formula One for selling more cars globally. Formula One is popular in key markets such as China and the USA, and the trend continues to rise even among young target groups, according to Dwesman. Singapore's reigning badminton world champion Law Kin Yew said he had no regrets after his title defense ended in a quarterfinal loss to Thailand's Kunlavut Vitidsaran in Tokyo on Friday. Number 8 seed Law lost 21-12, 17-21, 21-8 to rising star Vitidsaran, and he said he felt no pressure trying to defend his crown after winning the title last year in the Spanish city of Huelva. According to the 25-year-old, he struggled to cope with the drift inside Tokyo Metropolitan Gymnasium, but this week was fine for him. Law added that he tried his best to fight for every point, and that was all that matters to him. At the London Zoo, animals are queuing up at the weighing scales to see if they have put on any pounds. The zoo has begun its annual weigh-in. With more than 15,000 animals to deal with, it will take about a week to complete the task. It's a bit of a chore to entice the animals on the scales. As well as their weight, zookeepers will take other measurements of the animals. The numbers are entered into an international database that allows zoos around the world to share that information. Zoo spokesman Daniel Simmons says the data provides them with some insight into the health of the animals.
So it gives us a chance to know, for example, has an animal lost a lot of weight very suddenly? Do our vets need to intervene? Or equally, has a female animal perhaps gained a lot of weight very rapidly, which could indicate pregnancy? But it's also really important that we keep all of those weights logged so that we can collaborate with other zoos, other conservation organisations, and share that data online.
A Belgian-British teen has become the youngest pilot to fly solo around the world. 17-year-old Mac Rutherford landed in Bulgaria to complete his 5.5-month journey. Rutherford covered 54,000 kilometers in 221 hours of flying time that took him across 30 countries. The war in Ukraine disrupted his plans. Instead of flying over Russia, Rutherford diverted south through Pakistan, India, South Korea, and Japan before crossing the Pacific Ocean to Alaska. While in Alaska, he was forced to land on an uninhabited island due to strong winds. Rutherford comes from a line of pilots with 4 generations of flyers. Rutherford says he wants to return to school, but says he will miss the adventure where he feels a definite sense of freedom when he is flying. Now let's take a look back on today's historical events. In 1682, English astronomer Edmund Halley first observes the comet named after him. The Halley's Comet was last seen in Earth's skies in 1986. It will return in 2061 on its regular 76-year journey around the sun. In 1968, Hey Jude single was released by the Beatles in the U.S. It became Billboard's Song of the Year also in 1968 and Billboard 10th biggest song of all time in 2013. And in 1971, Bobby Orr signs a 5-year contract with the Boston Bruins worth $1 million, the first $1 million contract in National Hockey League history. And now to help start your weekend, here's a quote from Zig Ziglar, an American author. Make failure your teacher, not your undertaker. So don't dwell on your mistakes, learn and move on. And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I'm CJ Hero, and this is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.